Bass, the final frontier. Today we're talking about how to outline chords with bass. Cort sent me this awesome C4 bass, very inexpensive bass guitar, but it sounds great. So I was thinking of like, what can I do like a lesson on? And I think one of the main things that really like helped me like learn bass guitar and kind of like the function of the instrument and really all the cool stuff you can do with it is a Red Hot Chili Peppers song, Soul to Squeeze. Flea, one of my favorite bass players ever, one of the most iconic bass players ever. So we're going to talk about the bass line and how it pairs with a chord progression, so we need an acoustic guitar to go along with it. It's going to sound like this. So the reason I picked this bass line is because I think it's a great example of being able to kind of play along with the chords, but still kind of like add a lot of melodic content to it, because you know there's a lot of different ways that you can think of the function of a bass. It doesn't just have to be locking in with the kick drum or kind of outlining the chords. There's still a lot of creativity that you can use, and Flea is one of the all-time greats at this. Okay, so before we actually get into the bass line, I want to talk about the chords that are being played using a guitar as an example. Alright, so the chords of the song, we have F major. It's in the key of F major, like we said. So it's an F major chord to a C to D minor 7. Still on D minor, then F, C, G minor 7, and then with an A on top, or you can see this last one as B flat major 7. But again, F major triad, C major triad, D minor triad, pretty much, right? Stay there, back to F, C, G, A on top, back to F. F major, the first part of that chord progression is an F major. Really helps to learn the F major scale. Easiest way to do that right here is F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. Okay, so 1, 3, open, 1, 3, open, 2, 3. Again, without the open strings, you can always use it as a different like hand position. That's why it's great to kind of just go through all of them. The F on the A string is going to be the 8th fret right here. Right there, just like on a guitar. All the same shapes on a guitar exist on a bass because, again, the lowest 4 strings are usually tuned the same. But again, we're going to kind of keep it lower end right here. All right, so what do you play on a bass when we know that the chord is F? At the very least, you could just sit on the root note. Right? The next thing you might want to do is add the 5th. I've done other bass lessons about this. Just root 5, that 3rd fret. Again, like a power chord on a guitar is always going to give you the bass note and the 5th. We're going to talk more about that later in the progression, but what I love about this is it goes into here. Okay, so F chord into a C chord, D minor, and then back here. All right, so where this comes from, it's really just 1, 1, 3, 5, 3, A. Okay, so that's just a cool way to kind of really smoothly get from an F major chord to a C major chord. We're going through those notes, and again, the 5th fret on the low E string is the same as the open A string, so we're outlining into the next part right here. Okay, really easy, kind of a very basic way to get to a C chord. Then this is the next part. Okay, once we're on that C chord, right, here's the C, we're just gonna go back here, 2nd fret to the 3rd fret, then open, 2, 3, 1, A. Okay, so the interesting thing about this, and this is one of the reasons I picked this as an example, is because while we're sitting on that C chord, he goes 3, 3, 2, 3, or C, C, B, C. Okay, so a couple different ways you can look at this, just kind of like a little transitional thing. F. Now again, this note is not in the key of F, which is what we're in, right? But while the guitar is sitting on that C major chord going to D minor, C major to D minor are both chords that are also in the C major scale. So while he's sitting on that C, we can kind of go a half step back, almost like it's in C major, because B is a note in C major, right? So almost for that brief moment in time, our center is C, then we go to D, and that's what really sets up this note, this B flat note, up for greatness, okay? Because while that guitar is on that D minor chord, we're just going through the D minor scale, which again are notes in the key, open 2, 3, the key of F, right? D minor and F major are the same notes. So we're outlining that D minor chord, D, E, F, to make sure it's minor. Again, there's a root note and it's minor third, and then we're back to B flat. Okay, so the interesting thing about how a B flat note matches up with a D minor chord on a guitar. Again, a D minor chord on a guitar is a D, an F, and an A. The cool thing about that is you can see that as an extension of B flat. So because the bass player is choosing to play a B flat and the guitar player is playing a D minor, there's kind of like this cool, you know, they combine to make maybe like a B flat chord, right? So there's B flat major or D minor. Okay, so again, it's a combination of both of them kind of like combining to add a cool chord. And because he hits that B flat there, it makes a big difference. Like if I were just to stay on D, doesn't sound wrong, you know, it's definitely right, but him hitting that B flat really kind of changes the whole tonality of the song. So that's why a lot of times people will say that bass players can be the bully of the band, because since they have the lowest note, they can really kind of reinterpret what the guitar player is playing. So even though the guitar player is playing D minor, that bass being on a B flat makes it more of like a B flat sound, okay? And it kind of gives it more of a playful thing, which again, B flat is the 1, 2, 3, the fourth note in the key of F. That note's mode would be the Lydian mode. It's my favorite. I think it's like the most playful mode around. And again, this is a great illustration of how that works. So to recap. All right, 1, 1, 3, 5, 3A, 2A, 3A, open D, 2, 3, B flat. We'll consider that part 1. The next part is going to sound like this. Back to the beginning, okay? So this is going to be the second half of the chord progression. Remember, on the guitar, it's still D minor to F, C, G minor, okay? So D minor, another way to play that, first of all, we've outlined open 2, 3, right? And then kind of push that chord progression back to B flat. Now for the next part, we're just going to sit really super, you know, easy. There's the root note, the fifth below, 5A twice, 5E, 5A. So a D, D, A, D. All right. Now again, that's just a power chord. Those are just notes in that D minor chord. They're not major, they're not minor. That's why the bass guitar being the root 5, 1. There's a different vibe between going below, right? Root 5, 1, or root 5, 1. Again, the nice thing about bringing that root note, that D, to the A string now is right beneath it. You kind of get that cool fretted fifth below, which is probably why he doesn't go, right? You could just do it with open strings, D, D, A, D, but you lose the control of the sustain, being able to kind of control with that punchy bump, 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 bump. It kind of sounds better in the context of a band. It's not as sloppy. The frequencies aren't just sustaining like that, right? Again, it doesn't make it bad. You could still play it like that if you want, because it is easier, but then we're going to go to F. But instead of playing just kind of like sitting on F, we could have done the same thing. Like there, in F, it's fifth. Again, the 8th fret on the A string. We're going to go kind of make this really reverse power chord, I guess if you want to look at it. That's how I see it in my mind's eye. D minor to F, because those are the chords on the guitar. But he's choosing to kind of outline the F and add that B flat in there, because again, there's a lot of B flats in this, even though really in that guitar part, there's not a B flat chord. So him kind of sprinkling that B flat note in there, making it a little bit important, is adding a lot of melodic content to the song. And that's why I think he's just like, like the best bass player ever, right? So we've got this little reverse power chord, back to C, G, B flat. Again, that we have a C note just over a C chord in the guitar, and then G minor, simple enough, follow the bass note, the root note, 3rd fret, and then the 6th fret. Now, again, here's that B flat again. In the context of a G minor chord on guitar, this is going to be its minor 3rd. So we're kind of just outlining its minor 3rd and back, okay? So, again, you can always kind of see any of these notes in the same key is just kind of playing around on bass, but he really is adding a lot of melodic content and punch to the playing while also kind of not really stealing the show. That's why it's like, I just think it's like the perfect bass riff. Okay, so we have, here are the chords: F, C, D minor. And then, depending on how you want to play it, sometimes he'll kind of get this little octave thing. Again, that's the same note, just higher, and he'll kind of get 3 in a row. Bum, bum, bum. Still on D minor, F major, C major, G minor. Okay, so I think it's very, very helpful to always think of the chords in the song. Chords aren't just for guitar players or piano players or whatever. Bass players need to know the chords because those, just knowing the notes inside of them really help you outline and illustrate different ideas. That's why learning arpeggios on any instrument is really great, because it's a great way to find those notes all the time. That F arpeggio, F, A, C, F, C, A, F. And again, just like that bass line goes, that's a great way to do it, because you kind of run that scale note into the next thing. So whenever you see a major chord, you can maybe just think of this shape. Whenever you see a minor chord, think of this shape. Just kind of how we did in that G minor. And then you can make your own bass lines from just those notes in the arpeggio. Okay, so run through the whole thing one last time. F major, C major, D minor, stay on D minor, to F major, C major, G minor. You can also add the different things as we walk it to the B flat. Just a few notes, just to keep it interesting. Back to C, G. And then he's always great at adding these little kind of like short pentatonic E runs, just C, D, F, D, C, back home. So yeah, one of my favorite bass lines of all time, really the first song that I could see working, where it's like, all right, I'm starting to understand where these notes are coming from, because they really are the chords on a guitar, but at the same time being able to interpret how those chords are shifting, like that C, C, B, C, just like that, adding the major 7 in the key of C, even though that note isn't even the scale. I think it's just really a masterclass, and something that, first of all, just sounds amazing. Second of all, it's not super hard to play. And third of all, it just really gets into the mind of, I think, one of the best, just tightest bands ever. Just Frusciante and Flea, just kind of how they vibe so hard off each other. And it just sounds beautiful. They just mix super well together. So thank you to Cort for sponsoring this video, sending this bass guitar out. And if you guys have any more questions, if you want to see more bass lessons or kind of different things you'd like me to illustrate, maybe in correlation with the guitar or not, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website. I'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks a lot.